The patrol car's siren wailed like a banshee through the rain-slicked streets of Pittsburgh, cutting off Daniel's desperate sprint toward the bus stop. Officer Christopher Hale slammed the door open, his boots splashing in puddles that mirrored the stormy November sky, and grabbed the kid by the collar of his threadbare hoodie. "What the hell do you think you're doing? Running like a goddamn fugitive," Chris barked, his voice a gravelly thunder that made Daniel's knees buckle. Daniel's heart hammered against his ribs, not from fear of the cop, but from the raw ache of another shift at the diner ending too late, another night scraping by in a city that chewed up dreams like stale gum. He was 22, with eyes like fractured glass, blue and sharp, holding secrets heavier than the backpack slung over his shoulder, and in that moment, as Chris's grip tightened, he whispered, "Just trying to get home, sir. Please." Chris's laugh was a bitter slash, the kind honed from too many nights enforcing laws that felt like shackles on his own restless soul. He was 34, broad-shouldered and built like the steel mills this town once revered, his uniform crisp but his eyes hollowed by a divorce that left him questioning every badge-polish certainty. Spotting the rainbow pin glinting defiantly on Daniel's backpack, a tiny flag in the downpour, Chris's lip curled. "Home? For a fairy like you, that must mean some glitter-dusted dive bar. Newsflash, kid, this ain't San Francisco. Keep prancing around my beat, and I'll make sure you learn that the hard way." The words landed like fists, each one a bruise blooming under Daniel's skin, but he didn't flinch. Not outwardly. Inside, the old scars twisted, the ones from foster homes where different meant a locked closet door at night, or from high school lockers smeared with slurs that stuck like tar. He yanked free, rain streaking his face like tears he refused to shed, and met Chris's glare. "You don't know a damn thing about me, officer. But keep talking. One day, it'll echo back louder than you can handle." Chris watched him bolt into the bus's headlights, a flicker of something, regret, curiosity, stirring in his gut like bad coffee. He climbed back into the cruiser, radio crackling with dispatch's mundane chatter. But Daniel's parting shot lingered, a hook in his conscience he couldn't shake. Pittsburgh's bridges arched over the Allegheny like veins of iron will, and tonight, they felt like the only things holding the city, and maybe Chris himself, together. By morning, the rain had cleared, leaving the Monongahela River shimmering under a weak sun. Chris nursed a black coffee at Millie's Diner, the kind of joint where vinyl booths sagged under the weight of steelworker ghosts and the air smelled of grease and forgotten ambitions. He wasn't there for the food. He was there because the kid from last night slung hash browns here, according to the beat cop grapevine. "Just making sure he ain't causing trouble," Chris muttered to himself, but the lie tasted sour. Daniel moved behind the counter like a shadow given grace, wiping spills with economical swipes, pouring refills with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. When he approached Chris's booth, tray balanced on one hip, his voice was steady as the Ohio steel once forged nearby. "What'll it be, officer? Coffee's fresh, but I wouldn't recommend the pancakes unless you like M with a side of regret." Chris's jaw tightened, the memory of the rain-soaked alley flashing like a mugshot. He leaned forward, elbows on the scarred formica, and let his voice drop low. "You got mouth on you, kid. Last night wasn't enough? Need me to cuff that attitude?" Daniel's hand paused mid-pour, coffee sloshing perilously close to the rim. Close. Chris saw the faint scar above his left eyebrow, a silvery thread from some untold battle, and the way his fingers trembled just once before steadying. "Attitude?" That's rich coming from a man who hides behind a badge to feel big. Eat your eggs and leave the lectures to Sunday school. The diner fell into a hush, forks clinking like distant alarms. Chris felt heat crawl up his neck. Not anger, exactly, but something sharper, like the edge of a truth he wasn't ready to face. He'd grown up in these hills, son of a mill foreman who preached tough love with a belt buckle, and joined the force to impose order on a world that had buckled his own family. Gay kids like this one, they were easy targets, distractions from the gnawing void where his marriage had crumbled, from the whispers in the locker room about his own late-night doubts. He shoveled eggs into his mouth, chewing like it was penance, while Daniel retreated to the kitchen hatch, shoulders squared against the weight of eyes. But as Chris paid and stood, their gazes locked again, Daniel's defiant, Chris's unreadable, and in that electric standoff, Chris tossed a 20 on the table. Keep the change. And the advice, watch your back out there. Not everyone's as patient as me. Daniel pocketed the bill without thanks. But as the bell jingled Chris's exit, he exhaled a breath he hadn't known he was holding. The rainbow pin caught the light, a beacon in the diner's fluorescent glow, and for the first time in months, Daniel wondered if courage wasn't just surviving the blows, but staring down the fist. Weeks blurred into the gray rhythm of winter, Pittsburgh's skyline a jagged silhouette against skies that wept sleet. Chris patrolled the south side, where dive bars pulsed with neon promises and the air hummed with the ghosts of industry. He told himself it was routine that brought him back to Millie's, neighborhood checks, community policing bullshit, but deep down, it was the kid. Daniel. The name had slipped from a coworker's offhand remark, and now it stuck like burrs on wool. One Friday night, the diner overflowed with post-shift crowds. Welders nursing beers, nurses trading war stories. Chris slid into his usual booth, collar unbuttoned against the steam. Daniel approached, notepad in hand, but his usual spark dimmed, eyes ringed with fatigue, a fresh bruise purpling his cheekbone like spilled ink. Back again, Daniel said, voice flat as the steel plates once rolled in Homestead. You aiming for a record, or just stalking the free refills? Chris's gut twisted at the mark on his face. Who'd you piss off this time? Houdini? That from dodging another bus. Daniel's laugh was a hollow echo, scribbling orders without looking up. Life's a contact sport, officer. Some hits you see coming. Others, they blindside you like a Steelers sack. But Chris wasn't buying the bravado. As the crowd thinned, he lingered, nursing pie that tasted like cardboard. When closing time came, Daniel flipped the sign to closed, shoulders slumping as he wiped down the counter. Chris stood, blocking the door. That bruise ain't from a spatula slip. Talk. Daniel's rag stilled, eyes flashing. Since when do cops play therapist? Last I checked, your specialty's slinging slurs, not sympathy. The word stung, sharper than Chris expected, dredging up his own alleyway venom. He stepped closer, the scent of dish soap and rain mingling like an uneasy truce. Maybe I'm tired of being the villain in your script. Or maybe I just hate seeing good people get ground down. Humor me. For a long beat, Daniel held his gaze, the diner's clock ticking like a heartbeat. Then, with a sigh that carried the weight of rivers, he leaned against the counter. Foster system chew toy. That's me. Last night, my old man, well, the latest dad flavor, decided rent money looked better in his vein than my pocket. Said I was too soft for this world. Guess he proved his point. Chris's fists clenched, the uniform suddenly feeling like armor for the wrong war. He'd seen the reports. Kids like Daniel bounced from home to home, invisible until they snapped. You press charges? And say what? Officer, he hit me because I'm queer and broke? Spare me the forms. I've got my own code. Their eyes met again. And this time, Chris saw not defiance, but a quiet forge, steel-tempered in fire. Your code's gonna get you killed, kid. Let me drive you home. No strings. Daniel hesitated, the offer hanging like fog off the point. Finally, he nodded, grabbing his coat. As they stepped into the biting cold, Chris's cruiser idling like a reluctant beast, Daniel murmured, "Name's Daniel, by the way." "Not kid." "Christopher," Chris replied, the syllables foreign on his tongue, like admitting a vulnerability. But Chris works for friends. The drive wound through lit streets, past the Duquesne incline's glowing cables, and for once, silence wasn't heavy, it was a bridge, tentative and true. Snow dusted the windshield like powdered regret as Chris navigated the narrow streets of Lawrenceville, the neighborhoods where row houses huddled like old friends against the wind. Daniel sat shotgun, backpack at his feet, staring out at the holiday lights twinkling defiantly in the chill. "Turn left up here," he directed, voice soft. The blue door with the peeling paint. "Home sweet halfway house." Chris pulled up, engine rumbling low. The house loomed, sagging porch, windows curtained in faded plaid, a far cry from the manicured lawns of his own Shadyside apartment. "You sure about this?" "Could. I don't know. Call social services." "Get you out." Daniel's chuckle was wry, fogging the glass. "Social services? That's the fox guarding the henhouse." "Chris, I've danced that tango since I was 12. Ran away from a placement in Erie once, hitched to Cleveland, slept in a Greyhound station. Learned quick. Trust's a luxury, like heat in winter." Chris killed the ignition, the sudden quiet amplifying the distant wail of a siren. His world, intruding. He turned, studying Daniel's profile, the sharp line of his jaw, the way his lips quirked in perpetual half-smile, masking the storm beneath. "That pin on your bag," Chris said, nodding toward the backpack. "It's not just flair, is it? It's armor." Daniel's fingers traced the rainbow enamel, a talisman worn thin. "Mom gave it to me before the cancer took her. Wear your colors loud. Danny," she'd say. Dad bailed after the diagnosis. Couldn't handle a sick wife and a sissy son. Funny how grief rhymes with thief. He paused, vulnerability cracking his voice like thin ice. "You ever lose someone and feel like half of you went with him?" The question hit Chris like a gut punch. His ex, Laura, high school sweethearts turned strangers, hadn't died, but the marriage had, buried under unspoken suspicions and Chris's buried shame. "Yeah," he admitted, the word rough. "Feels like drowning in shallow water. Everyone sees you treading, but you're sinking anyway." They sat there, two strangers forged in the same quiet fire, until Daniel unbuckled. "Thanks for the ride, Officer Hale. Try not to ticket any orphans on your way back." "Chris," he corrected gently. "And Daniel, if that bruises Dad shows his face again, you call me. Badge or no." Daniel's door creaked open, cold rushing in. "Why? So you can bully the bully? Or is this your redemption arc?" Chris's laugh was low, genuine. Hell if I know. But stick around, and maybe we'll find out. As Daniel vanished into the house, Chris drove off, the empty passenger seat echoing louder than the radio static. Back at the station, the bullpen buzzed with shift change banter, cops swapping stories over vending machine coffee, the air thick with machismo and microwave burritos. His partner, Mike, clapped him on the back. Heard you played night to some twink last night. Going soft. Hale? Chris shrugged it off. But the jab lingered. Soft? Maybe. But Daniel's story had cracked something in him, a fissure where light leaked through the cracks of his armored heart. The next patrol brought a call to the diner, a domestic disturbance. Dispatch said. Chris arrived to chaos. Shattered plates, a burly man in grease-stained overalls looming over the manager, veins bulging like rivers in flood. That little shit shorted my change, the man bellowed, finger jabbing toward the kitchen. Daniel emerged, apron askew, face pale but set. I gave you exact. Roy. Check your pocket again. Roy lunged, but Chris was there, hand on his shoulder, voice steel. Back off, pal. Assault in a public place? That's a night in county. The man grumbled but retreated, tail between his legs. As the diner exhaled, Daniel met Chris's eyes across the debris. My hero, he quipped, but gratitude softened the sarcasm. Coffee's on me. Black, right? They cleaned up side by side. Chris sweeping shards, Daniel mopping, an unlikely duo in the diner's after-hours hush. Roy's a regular, Daniel explained, dumping glass into a bin. Lost his mill job last year. Blames everyone but the bottle. I get it. Anger's easier than empty. Chris nodded, broom pausing. Sounds familiar. My old man was the same after the layoffs. Came home swinging, mom dodging like it was dodgeball. I joined the force to fix that, I guess. Be the shield. Daniel glanced up, surprise flickering. A cop with a backstory? Next you'll tell me you knit on your days off. Clothes I restore old Harleys. Therapy on wheels. Chris grinned, the expression foreign but fitting. What about you, besides dodging fists and drunks? What's Daniel's secret superpower? A shadow crossed Daniel's face, but he rallied. I write. Letters. Mostly. To kids like me, foster runaways, queer teens kicking around the system. Share 'em on this underground forum. Courage in the cracks, I call it. Silly, but it keeps the dark at bay. Chris whistled low. That's not silly. That's brave as hell. He wanted to say more, to unpack the knot of admiration tightening in his chest, but the words stuck, tangled in years of silence. Outside, snow fell thicker, blanketing the city in hush. Chris offered another ride, and this time, Daniel accepted without protest. At the house, porch light flickering like a hesitant welcome, Daniel turned. You know, for a bully cop, you're not half bad. Kinda like a stray dog, growly, but loyal. Chris's pulse quickened, the air between them charged like pre-storm static. And you're a scrapper, Daniel. The kind that makes a man want to fight for something real. Their hands brushed, accidental, electric, and Daniel pulled back first, cheeks flushed against the cold. Night, Chris. Don't let the bedbugs recruit you. Alone in the cruiser, Chris gripped the wheel, heart racing like he'd run the bridges. What the hell was this? Pity? Pity didn't spark like flint on steel. Winter deepened, holidays looming like uninvited guests. Chris found excuses to orbit Millie's. A welfare check that stretched to lunch, a flat tire mysteriously resolved by closing time. Daniel noticed, teasing with sidelong glances and quips that masked a growing thaw. One evening, as Chris loitered by the register, Daniel slid him a dog-eared notebook. "For your therapy, read it. But if you laugh, I'll poison your pie." Chris flipped it open later. Under his apartment's harsh bulb, pages of raw prose, letters to faceless boys. "You're not broken, you're bent toward the light," and poems that bled honesty, like bridge over rust, evoking Pittsburgh's spans as metaphors for fragile hope. Daniel's words wrapped around Chris's doubts, squeezing until something shifted, a confession bubbling up, hot and unbidden. He showed up at the diner unannounced, notebook clutched like contraband. "This," Chris said, voice thick, "is goddamn poetry. You're a writer, Daniel. Not some diner drone." Daniel blushed, waving it off. "Flattery from a flatfoot? What's next? Sonnets in squad cars." But Chris pressed on. "Ernest, I'm serious. Ever think of publishing? Or, hell, college? There's programs for guys like me." Daniel's tone sharpened, old walls rising. "Scholarships for strays? I've applied, letters lost in the void. Face it, Chris, this town's for winners, and I'm still warming the bench." The hurt in his eyes gutted Chris. He reached across the counter, hand covering Daniel's, deliberate this time, warm against the chill. "You're no bench warmer. You're the whole damn game." Time suspended, the touch a lifeline. Then the bell jingled, shattering the spell, and Daniel withdrew, busying himself with orders. But later, in the cruiser's warmth, Daniel confessed, "That notebook is my armor too. Without it, I'd be just another ghost in the machine." Chris glanced over, city lights painting his face in gold. "Nah. You're the spark, Daniel. The one that lights up the rust." As they parted that night, a tentative bond solidified, not friendship, exactly, but the raw or of something deeper, mined from shared silences and stolen touches. Valentine's Day crept in like a thief. Pittsburgh streets slick with melt and littered with wilted bouquets from corner florists. Chris had never marked the holiday. Laura called it Hallmark hustle. But this year, it gnawed at him, a reminder of the chasm between duty and desire. He bought Daniel a leather-bound journal, anonymous, left it on the diner counter with a note. "For the cracks. Fill 'em with fire." See, Daniel found it mid-shift, fingers tracing the embossed cover, heart stuttering. No one had ever seen him like that, gift-wrapped in understanding. He tucked it away, but when Chris rolled in at dusk, Daniel's smile was genuine, unguarded, subtle as a siren. "Officer. But thanks. Means more than you know." They talked longer than usual, about everything and nothing. Chris's boyhood dreams of racing the inclines, Daniel's secret wish to trace Route 66 in a beat-up Mustang, chasing horizons free of judgment. As snow flurries danced outside, Chris's hand found Daniel's again, lingering. "This, us hanging like this, it's good. Right?" Daniel's breath caught, the air humming with unspoken what-ifs. "Yeah. Scary good." Their thumbs brushed, a promise in motion, but Daniel pulled back, eyes shadowed. But good things in this town, they come with strings. Or sirens. Chris wanted to argue, to vow safety in his arms. But the radio crackled. A 10-32. Domestic in Lawrenceville. Daniel's neighborhood. Go, he urged. Save the poetry for later. The call led Chris to Daniel's halfway house. Porch light swinging like a noose. Inside, chaos. Furniture splintered. Roy from the diner rampaging, bottle in hand, while Daniel shielded a younger kid, 18, wide-eyed, backpack clutched like a shield. Get out, Roy. He's not your punching bag. Roy swung wild, but Chris burst through, tackling him to the threadbare carpet. Cuffs clicked. Miranda rights recited like a dirge. As backup hauled Roy away, Daniel slumped against the wall. The teen Jamie, he introduced, huddled close. You okay? Chris asked, voice rough with adrenaline. Daniel nodded, but his eyes glistened. Jamie's new to the house. Ran from Philly, parents found his grinder chats, tossed him like trash. I couldn't let Roy near him. Not another scar. Chris knelt, assessing the kid's trembling form. You're safe now, son. We'll get you squared. To Daniel, softer. And you, Jesus, you're a force. Like a damn guardian angel with a side of sass. Jamie mumbled thanks, but Daniel waved it off, exhaustion etching lines on his young face. Later, after statements and social worker calls, Chris drove them both to his apartment. Just for tonight, he insisted. No arguments. The space was sparse. Leather couch, Harley posters, a fridge stocked with takeout remnants. Daniel crashed on the couch, Jamie in the spare room, while Chris brewed tea in the kitchen, hands unsteady. Watching Daniel sleep, chest rising even, lashes fanned like fragile wings. Chris felt it. Not pity, but a fierce protectiveness, laced with longing that scared him spitless. Morning brought awkward domesticity. Pancakes from a mix, Jamie thawing over coffee. You're gay too? The kid asked Chris bluntly, spoon pausing mid-bite. Chris choked on his mug, Daniel smirking from across the table. Subtle, Jamie. But, yeah, technically. Kept it locked down. Force don't take kindly to rainbows on the badge. Daniel's gaze warmed, pride flickering. Well, damn. The bullies got layers. Like an onion. Or a really good pie. Laughter broke the tension. A bomb. But as Jamie napped, Daniel cornered Chris in the hallway. Last night you didn't have to. But you did. Why? Chris leaned in, walls crumbling. Because seeing you fight for him, it hit me. You're not just surviving, Daniel. You're building something, hope, for kids like us. And I want in. On that. On you. The confession hung. Electric. Daniel's hand rose, cupping Chris's jaw, thumb tracing stubble. Their lips met, tentative, then fervent. A kiss tasting of maple and mended fractures. Pittsburgh's skyline watching through frost-laced windows. It was the start. Stolen moments in the cruiser after shifts. Hands intertwined under diner counters. Whispers in the incline's shadow. Love bloomed quiet, like spring crocuses through concrete, romantic walks along the Three Rivers, where Chris shared stories of his closeted youth. Fumbling crushes on teammates. Daniel read poems aloud, voice weaving magic under street lamps. But shadows loomed. At the station, whispers spread. Mixed night jab evolving into sidelong stares. A locker room joke about Hale's new beat boy. Chris brushed it off. But doubt festered. Could he bridge worlds? Badge and heart? One April evening, conflict erupted. Daniel's forum gained traction. Courage in the Cracks, featured in a local zine, drawing eyes from youth centers. Invigorated, he pitched a workshop at a community center, but nerves frayed. What if they laugh? Or worse, what if it's just pity? Chris, post-shift in civvies, pulled him close on the apartment couch. They'll see you, Daniel. The real you. Braver than any cop I know. The workshop hummed. 10 teens. Stories spilling like rivers, rejection, runs, resilience. Daniel facilitated with grace. His own scars shared sparingly. A beacon. Chris watched from the back, chest swelling, until his phone buzzed. A text from Mike. Heard you're moonlighting as nanny. Careful, or IA gets wind. Rage simmered. Later, over beers at a quiet strip district pub, Chris vented. It's bullshit. Like they own my soul, 'cause I wear the star. Daniel's hand on his knee grounded him. Then don't let him. You're more than the uniform, Chris. You're mine. The words sealed it. A deepening, where touches lingered, nights blurred into dawn. But betrayal brewed, insidious as rust. May brought bloom and breakage. Chris's ex, Laura, resurfaced, phone calls laced with miss you, stirring old guilts. She visited, coffee in hand, eyes probing. Who's the guy? Chris, saw you with some kid. Don't tell me you've gone full rainbow. He denied, heat rising, defensive, ashamed. It's nothing. Just helping a friend. But Laura's laugh cut deep. Friend? Please. You're throwing away everything for a phase. The department talks, you know. One wrong move, and poof, career over. Her words wormed in, amplifying locker room echoes. That night, Chris snapped at Daniel over a forgotten dinner. Can't you see? This, us. It's a goddamn liability. Daniel recoiled, eyes wide. Liability? Is that what I am? Your dirty little secret. The fight escalated. Words as weapons. Chris accusing recklessness. Daniel hurling coward, like a grenade. Doors slammed. Silence after like shrapnel. Days passed in Cold War, Chris patrolling hollow. Daniel's shifts dodged. Then, the gut punch. A call to the diner. Not disturbance, but Daniel's collapse, exhaustion. A fainting spell from skipped meals. Stress's toll. Chris arrived, heart in throat, finding Daniel on a stretcher, pale as Allegheny fog. I'm fine, he rasped, but fear etched his face. Just stupid body quitting. At the ER, waiting room purgatory, Chris held his hand, apologies tumbling. I was scared, Daniel, of losing you to this world that chews us up. But pushing you away, that's the real cowardice. Daniel squeezed back, tears tracking. We fight together, Chris. Or not at all. Reconciliation was raw, kisses in the hospital glow. Vows whispered against monitor's beep. But the fracture lingered, a warning crack. Summer scorched in, humid as unresolved tension. Their love deepened. Picnics in Skenley Park, where Daniel sketched Chris's profile against blooming dogwoods. Lazy Sundays restoring the Harley, grease-smeared laughs echoing. Yet Chris's secrecy chafed. No station introductions. Dates in shadows. The climax brewed at Pride, Pittsburgh's riverfront parade. Rainbows rioting against gray skies. Daniel urged Chris, "Come out. With me. Show 'em we're unbreakable." Chris wavered, badge heavy. "It's not that simple. The job. Your heart is." Daniel's plea hung, earnest. He went incognito at first, then hand in hand. The crowds roar a bomb. But Mike spotted them, face twisting. "Hale? With him? You're fucked." The betrayal hit days later. Anonymous tip to IA. Officer Hale compromising integrity. Involved with protected class. Investigation launched. Whispers venomous. Chris faced the storm alone first, shielding Daniel. "It's handled," he lied. Nights sleepless. But truth erupted at a precinct barbecue. Mike cornered him, beer-fueled. "Knew you were queer, but banging the help? Pathetic." Fists flew, Chris's connecting, blood on knuckles. Suspension followed, badge yanked like a traitor's noose. Daniel found him at the garage, wrench in hand, Harley gutted. "What happened?" Chris broke, story spilling, shame raw. "I lost it all. For us." Daniel pulled him close, oil and tears mingling. "No. You found us. That's the win." Suspension stretched like taffy, sticky and interminable. Chris's days a blur of appeals and isolation. The apartment, once sanctuary, echoed with accusation. Laura's voicemails piling like indictments, department emails curt as slaps. He threw himself into the Harley, wrench turning like therapy, but rage simmered, directed inward. How had he let it come to this? A bully reformed, only to bully himself into ruin. Daniel became anchor, showing up with takeout and that unyielding gaze. "You're not ruined, Chris. You're retooling, like this beast." He nodded at the bike, half assembled on the floor. One evening, grease-streaked and spent, Chris confessed deeper fears. "What if I'm poison? Dragged you into my mess." Daniel straddled the Harley, pulling Chris between his legs, hands framing his face. "Poison? You're the antidote. To my loneliness, my doubts." We rebuild together, fender by fender. Their kiss was fierce, claiming bodies aligning in the garage's dim, tools forgotten. It wasn't lust, but affirmation. Skin to skin, heartbeats sinking like pistons. Afterward, wrapped in a tarp against the concrete chill, Daniel traced Chris's scars, physical and phantom. "Tell me about her. Laura. The ghost in your gears." Chris exhaled, story unfolding. Teenage love in Catholic school, vows rushed post 9/11. Cracks widening as his attractions blurred, stolen glances at rookies, buried longings. She sensed it, hated me for it. Divorce was mercy, but it gutted me, made me lash out at the world, at guys like you. To prove I wasn't broken, Daniel supplied gently. "Newsflash, we're all bent, Chris. But together, straight as these handlebars." Laughter bubbled, easing the knot. They finished the Harley that week, a gleaming 72 shovelhead, midnight blue, and took it for a spin, winding up Mount Washington. City sprawled below like a conquered map. Wind whipped. Freedom roared. Daniel's arms tight around Chris's waist, a ribbon of trust. But the investigation gnawed. IA grilled Chris, Inappropriate relationship with vulnerable individual? He stonewalled, protecting Daniel's anonymity, but leaks poisoned the well. Gossip rags dubbing him badge bender. Protests from conservative alums demanding his head. Daniel's world tilted too. The zine featured Drew hate mail, forum trolls doxing his halfway house address. Roy, out on bail, slashed tires, vandalism laced with slurs. "They're coming for us both," Daniel said one night, barricaded in the apartment, Jamie crashing on their couch as temporary refuge. "Your blue wall, my rainbow bridge, crumbling." Chris paced, fists clenched. "Then we fortify. I fight the appeal, you amp the letters. Turn poison to power." Inspired, Daniel expanded Courage in the Cracks. A podcast now. Raw voices from the Rust Belt's queer underbelly. Episodes recorded in stolen diner hours. Chris guested anonymously. Voice modulated. "I was the bully once, hiding my own cracks. But love, it floods them with light." Listeners surged. A groundswell, youth centers calling, sponsors trickling. Yet betrayal's shadow lengthened. Mike, Chris's partner of 8 years, testified against him. "Hale's compromised," he claimed in deposition. "Eyes averted. Can't trust a man divided." The knife twisted, friendship forged in academy drills, now sacrificed on altars of conformity. Chris confronted him in a station square lot, rain sheeting like judgment. "Why, Mike, after everything?" Mike's face crumpled, rain masking tears. "It's the job, man. Or the wife says you're a bad influence on the boys. But hell, I envy you. Guts to chase what I buried." The admission hung, a fractured mirror. Chris walked away, not absolved, but understanding, betrayal's roots in fear's soil. Summer waned, leaves turning like turning points. Chris's appeal hearing loomed, a tribunal in a fluorescent-lit room, brass staring down like gods. He prepared alone. Daniel's journal his talisman. Entries now joint, their story inked. Love's labor, courage's cost. The night before, they climbed the Duquesne incline, car creaking upward, city lights a constellation of hopes. At the overlook, Daniel pressed a letter into Chris's hand, sealed, addressed to the panel. "Read it if words fail. It's us." Chris broke the seal under starlight. Daniel's prose, vivid as rivers. Officer Hale didn't bully a boy, he awakened a man. In a city of steel, he bent for love, unyielding as the bridges we cross. Tears blurred ink. Chris pulling Daniel close. "How'd I get you? A fuck-up like me?" "You're no fuck-up," Daniel murmured, lips brushing ear. "You're my constant." In this flux of a town, their embrace deepened, bodies melding against the rail, passionate, reaffirming, the inclines hum a heartbeat. Dawn found them entwined, resolve steeled. The hearing dawned gray, Chris in suit sharp as resolve, Daniel waiting outside like a sentinel. Testimony dragged. Mike's evasion, Brass's skepticism. Then Chris's turn, voice steady. He spoke of growth, of Daniel not as liability but catalyst. "I bullied because I feared myself. But courage, it's not solitary. It's shared, like this badge's oath to protect, not possess." Silence fell. Then the letter. Daniel's words read aloud, echoing humanistic plea. A brass uncle, old school, grizzled, nodded faintly. "Kids got fire. And you, Hale? Maybe redemption's earned." Reprieve came, Probation. Sensitivity training. Badge returned with caution. Chris emerged. Daniel crushing him in hug. We did it. No, we did. Fall painted Pittsburgh gold. Conflicts ebbing like receding floods. Chris transferred to community outreach, liaising with LGBTQ+ centers. His story a bridge. Daniel's podcast boomed. A voice for the voiceless. Workshop series sprouting citywide. Romance flourished unshadowed. Harvest festivals in the Strip. Hayrides where hands wandered innocently. Bonfires in Frick Park. Stories swapped under autumn stars. One crisp October eve. Chris proposed, not ring, but promise on the Harley, parked at the point where rivers converged. Marry me, Daniel? Not legal yet, but in our world, yours, mine forever. Daniel's yes was a sob, kiss sealing under bridges glow. Yet humanity's thread wove deeper. Jamie, thriving in college, credited their nest. Roy, in rehab, sent halting apology. Forgiven, a cycle broken. Winter circled back, softer now. Holiday lights twinkled not mocking, but merry. At Millie's Christmas shift, Chris waited in booth. Ring box hidden, simple band, engraved, cracks to Constance. As Daniel clocked out, snow falling gentle, Chris knelt. From bully to this, worth every bruise. Daniel's laugh joyed, slipping on the ring. Our story, Chris. Human as the heart, but fate, ever the dramatist, reserved one final act. The new year dawned brittle, Pittsburgh's freeze mirroring the undercurrent of unease Chris couldn't name. Probation chafed, mandatory check-ins, sidelong glances from old crew, but Daniel's light thought it, their engagement a private fanfare. Quiet dinners plotting honeymoons to the Keys, where beaches promised escape from rust. Daniel's star rose. A local lit agent scooped the podcast scripts into a memoir pitch. Cracks in the Keystone. Queer courage from the Rust Belt. Readings packed cafes. Fans queuing for signatures. Daniel's shy grin blooming under applause. It's surreal, he confessed one night, curled on the couch. Chris's arms fortress. Like I dreamed us into being. Chris kissed his temple, pride swelling. You did. And I'll ride shotgun every mile. But Mike's ghost lingered. Reassigned to nights. Chris crossed paths. Awkward nods in the bullpen. Tension thick as fog. One February patrol. A call united them. Overdose in the Hill District. Jamie's old block. They arrived synced. Old rhythm resurfacing, Chris securing scene. Mike canvassing as if betrayal hadn't scarred. Post-call. Over lukewarm station coffee. Mike broke ice. Congrats on the rock. Saw it on Insta, bold move. His eyes. Haunted. Added. And the hearing. I was wrong. Gutless. Chris paused. Steam rising like absolution. Yeah. But water under the bridges. Mike. We all crack. Handshake sealed tentative peace. A humanistic mend, not erasure, but evolution. Spring unfurled tentative. Dogwoods defiant against residual chill. Wedding plans wove whimsy. Vows at the Carnegie Museum. Rooftop under glass dome stars. Guests a mosaic. Foster alums. Outreach kids. Even Laura. Invited with olive branch. Attending with quiet grace. But climax crested unbidden. Late April. Daniel's forum hacked. Trolls unleashing venom. Doxed addresses. Fabricated scandals painting him predator to the youths he mentored. Hate mail flooded. Threats scrawled on halfway house walls. Fairy filth. Burn it down. Daniel crumbled. Barricaded in the apartment. Laptop smashed. They're winning. Chris. Twisting my light to lies. Chris held him through sobs. Fury coiling. No. We expose it, go public. Your way. The op-ed dropped in the Post-Gazette. Daniel's byline. Raw, from cracks to cyber. The cost of queer visibility in America. It went viral. Rallies sparking. Pride flags on City Hall. Council probes into online hate. Chris stood sentinel. Badge gleaming at pressers. Voice amplified. This man fights for the forgotten. We protect our own. Betrayal's echo? The hacker traced to Roy's Circle ex-con rage. Fueled by barroom bigotry. Arrest swift. Chris leading the cuff. Closure bittersweet. It's over, he told Daniel after. Riverside walk. Hands laced. Daniel leaned in. Wind tousling hair. No, it's evolved. Like us. Summer hummed triumphant. Memoir deal inked. Tour dates dotted coasts. Chris. Probation lifted. Promoted to sergeant. Outreach head. Rainbow pin on lapel. Unapologetic. Their love. Once shadowed. Blazed. Harley rides to Kennywood. Screams on coasters mirroring joy's thrill. Lazy Skenley afternoons. Picnics where Daniel read drafts. Chris editing with tender marks. Yet emotion's depth plumbed darker tides. One July Eve. Post-reading in Oakland. Daniel confessed over wine. The threats. They dredge it up. That night in the alley. Your words. They're the scar that aches when it rains. Chris's gut nodded. Old venom resurfacing. God. Daniel. I was lost. Hating myself so hard. I hurled it at you. The boy with courage I envied. Even then. Tears welled. But Daniel cupped his face. And now? You see me. See you? I worship. Kiss deepened. Romantic under cafe lights. Bodies swaying home. Love making a symphony of forgiveness. Slow and sacred. Fall's palette deepened resolve. Wedding neared. Rehearsals laced with laughter. Jamie best man. Toasting, from foster fuckery to forever. Vows crafted joint. Daniel's poetic. Chris's plain. I bullied shadows once. You taught me light. I vow to hold it. With you. Always. But humanity's arc bent toward test. October storm raged. Flooding lowlands. Evacuations. Chris on front lines. Wading chest deep. Rescuing families from row houses turned aquariums. Daniel volunteered. Sandbags and soup kitchens. His forum mobilizing aid. Cracks don't break us. They channel the flow. Mid-crisis. Call came. Laura. Car hydroplaned into guardrail. Pinned. Chris raced. Badge parting waters. Jaws of life screeching salvation. At hospital. She gripped his hand. Voice frail. Knew you'd come. Even after. Tell him, Daniel, she's proud. Of your courage. Chris relayed later. Daniel's eyes softening. Family's messy. But forgiveness? That's the real bridge. November chill heralded ceremony. Museum rotunda aglow. Rivers visible through panes. 50 souls witnessed. Queer kin. Blue line skeptics turned allies. Vows exchanged. Rings sliding like promises kept. In rust and rain. I choose you. Honeymoon whispered. Post-tour. But first. Reception danced. Toasts to resilience. First dance to Springsteen's Thunder Road. Arms entwined. World fading. As confetti swirled, Mike approached, suit rumpled. Beautiful. Deserved. Hand extended, not just peace, but partnership. Outreach collab? Your hub's kids. My beat. Bridge the gaps. Chris accepted. Brotherhood reborn. Winter wrapped gentle. First anniversary looming. Daniel's book launched, bestseller in niche. Forward by Chris. He carried courage. I learned to share the load. But life's drama reserved epilogues twist. Spring positive, Daniel's. A clinic call. Early cancer detection. Mom's shadow revisited. Shock rippled, but resolve surged. We fight, Chris vowed. Hand on belly flat. Like always, Daniel nodded. Fear laced with fire. Together. Cracks and all. The diagnosis landed like a derailment, stage 1. Treatable. But the word oncology echoed like a dirge through their sun-dappled kitchen. Daniel stared at the pamphlet. Colors mocking. Cheerful blues for battles unseen. Irony. Huh? Mom's ghost. Back for round 2. But this time, I've got backup. Chris knelt. Forehead to Daniel's. Voice anchor steady. Damn right. Scans. Chemo. Whatever, we map it like Route 66. No detours alone. Pittsburgh rallied. Rust Belt resilient. Forum fans crowdfunding treatments. Jamie organizing meal trains. Even Mike dropping off Harley-side tools. Fix what's broke. On the house. Daniel's memoir tour pivoted virtual. Proceeds to queer health funds. His voice thinner, but unbroken. Reaching thousands. Cancer doesn't care about labels. But love, it labels us unbreakable. Treatments began brutal. Infusions leaching color. Nausea a constant tide. Chris adapted. Nights cradling Daniel through chills. Mornings brewing ginger tea. Afternoons reading drafts aloud. Voice weaving normalcy. Romance persisted. Tender. Baths drawn scented. Bodies aligned gentle. Whispers of still beautiful against fevered skin. One chemo eve. Rain lashing windows. Daniel rasped. Promise me no pity party. If the worst. Chris silenced him with kiss. Saltang tears. No ifs. We're the plot twist. Remember, heroes who win ugly. Humanity shown in margins. Outreach boomed. Chris's program, Bridges Over Cracks. Pairing cops with at-risk youth. Daniel guesting via Zoom. Scars shared as stigmata. A kid from the hill. Echoing young Daniel. Credited it. Thought I was alone. Now, I see the span. Summer sulked humid. But remission flickered, scans clearer. Energy creeping back like dawn. They escaped to the Keys mid-July. Harley trailered. Salt air a sacrament. Beaches blurred blue. Waves lapping confessions. Chris admitting boyhood closets. Daniel unveiling foster horrors. A placement where cure meant conversion prayers. Faith twisted to chains. Yet here, Daniel said. Toes in surf. Ring glinting. Washed clean. Chris pulled him close. Ocean roar applause. Here. And always. Fall's foliage framed recovery. Book signings resumed. Crowds hugging Daniel like kin. Wedding anniversary marked intimate. Picnic at the point. Rivers converging as vows renewed. In sickness. In steel we endure. Betrayal's last echo? Roy. Paroled early. Sought amends. Letter to Daniel. Saw your words. Broke me open. Sorry don't fix. But it start. Daniel replied public. Podcast episode. Forging from fracture. No absolution forced. But space for growth. Winter whispered hopeful. Holidays hearthwarm. Tree trimmed with rainbow ornaments. Jamie home from school. Toasting to cracks that cradle light. Laura visited. Tentative bridge. Shared laughs over pie. Her, I'm happy for you, a mending thread. New Year's Eve. Under incline's glow. Chris gifted a custom journal. Leather etched with bridges. For the next chapter. Whatever it holds. Daniel's eyes sparkled. Health's hue returning. Our sequel. Dramatic. Sure. But damn. It's ours. Spring bloomed verdant. 1 year post-diagnosis. All clear proclaimed. Cheers echoing clinic halls. Daniel's second book brewed. Bridges unburned. Co-authored. Chris's voice woven in. Their love. Tempered. Shown romantic. Dawn rides. Wind-kissed. Evenings penned side by side. Fingers laced. Yet the arc's humanism crested personal. A foster call, teen runaway. Daniel's mirror. Crashing their couch. Teach me courage, the boy pled. Daniel glanced at Chris. Smile profound. We will. Together. Years folded forward. Pittsburgh's pulse theirs. Chris sergeant major. Reforms rippling. Daniel author advocate. Center founded. Crack Lighthouse. Haven for queer youth. Weddings legalized in waves. There's retro-vowed under rainbows. Old age crept gentle, Harley retired. But spirits revved. Grandkids, Jamie's. Adopted kin tumbling in parks. Stories spun of the cop and the scribe who mended a city. On a crisp autumn day. Bridges aglow. Chris and Daniel walked them on. Hands arthritic but clasped. Bully to this, Chris mused. Gray hair wind-tossed. Daniel leaned. Breath even. Courage carried us. And love? It built the span. No tragedy. But triumph earned, human. Flawed. Eternal. In rust's embrace. They endured. Two souls. Once fractured. Forever bridged.